Across the galaxy, entire civilizations vanished without a trace, but each left behind one final message. A warning about Earth. Not about war or invasion, but something far stranger. A mystery so deep it broke their minds and ended their worlds. Now one team dares to investigate. What they discover isn't a monster. It's the truth holding the universe together, and it wears the face of humanity. What if Earth isn't dangerous because of what's on it, but because of what it is? They guard something worse. If you are new here, then please subscribe this channel and show thumbs up by liking the video. Now let's move to this wonderful story. In the quiet corners of the galaxy, far from the gleaming cities and noisy starports, there were places no one dared to visit anymore. These were the ruins, remnants of once great civilizations that had all vanished without a clear reason. No wars, no signs of natural disaster, just silence and dust. Among these forgotten places, in a hollowed-out crater on the lonely moon of Versailles, an archivist named Darren brushed away the centuries with a steady hand and a curious heart. Darren wasn't a soldier or a scientist. He was a seeker of stories, someone who believed that the past whispered secrets if you listened closely enough. On this day, buried beneath layers of stone and collapsed metal, he found something strange. A smooth, glowing sphere pulsing with soft blue light. He recognized it at once. It was a memory core, an ancient device used to store thoughts, voices, and final messages. This one belonged to the Driftari, a race thought to be long gone. He connected the device to his translator. The voice that emerged was soft, calm, and cracked with age. "If you find this message," it began, "turn back. Do not approach the third planet in Sector R9. Earth is not what it appears to be." The message ended there. No explanation, no details, just a warning. Darren blinked. Earth? A small, unimportant world, known only for its odd broadcasts and strange sense of humor. Why would the Driftari leave such a warning about that place? But as he dug deeper into his records, a pattern began to form. The same warning, sometimes whispered, sometimes shouted, was echoed in 13 other sites he had visited over the past few years. Different voices, different cultures, but always the same message: stay away from Earth. He returned to his outpost on the orbiting research station and consulted Moji, a floating orb of data that had been his companion and assistant for years. Moji's interface flickered as it processed the new information. "That makes 14, it chirped, unusually serious. 14 unique warnings, all about Earth." Darren felt a chill run through him. Each of those civilizations had vanished shortly after recording their message. Their archives were always complete, well-organized, methodical, even bureaucratic. It was as if every species, in the moments before their end, had paused to write one last thing down, a caution about one small planet near a yellow sun. What troubled him most wasn't the message, it was the effort. Who takes the time to document a warning during the collapse of their entire civilization? Why did all of them prioritize recording a message about Earth instead of saving themselves? Moji floated beside him, scanning old audio logs and crystal matrices. "Some of these records go back millions of years," it said. "They never knew each other. There was no contact between them. Different star systems, different languages, different biology, yet all had the same fear." The mystery became too large for Darren to ignore. He filed a formal request to the Interstellar Archive Council, asking for permission to access restricted planetary records. When they denied him, citing protocol and priority schedules, he simply continued his work in secret. He labeled his private collection project Earthfall and began pulling in any obscure record that mentioned Earth. The warnings varied in form. One civilization had encoded their message into song patterns meant to be sung only during solar eclipses. Another had etched spirals into the bones of massive sea creatures and set them adrift in interstellar currents. One even placed their warning inside a living plant that bloomed only once every 1,000 years. And always, somewhere in the message, Earth was mentioned. His fingers trembled one evening as he played back a recording from the lost race of the Alari. The voice was filled with sorrow. We saw the signs too late, it said. They were never hiding something on Earth. Earth was the thing hiding it, a shield made of madness, a mask made of stories. We could not look away. We looked too deep. Darren sat in silence for hours. The stars outside the station didn't seem so peaceful anymore. He looked down at the rotating sphere of Earth on his screen, a planet of water and weather, animals and art, confusion and beauty. What could be so terrifying that it made the most advanced species in the galaxy stop everything to leave behind the same words? Maybe, he whispered to Moji, Earth isn't dangerous because of what it has. Maybe it's dangerous because of what it hides. Moji didn't respond at first. Then slowly it pulsed with a dim golden light. There is one more site, it said, unexplored, on the frozen world of Kanorak. It belonged to a race called the Talriks. They were the most advanced of all. Darren stood up, his decision made. Then we go there next. As the stars drifted silently beyond the station, he added a final note to his file. They warned us. They all warned us. And now we have to know why. The frozen world of Kanorak was not a place most travelers visited. Its storms howled endlessly, and its skies never cleared. But for Nira, a quiet researcher from the ocean-covered moon of Corvallis, this lonely planet held something no one else had dared to find. With her long coat flapping in the wind and her breathing mask fogging in the cold, she stepped carefully into the remains of what once was the center of the Talrik civilization. The Talriks were legends. Scientists, artists, explorers, and thinkers far ahead of their time. They had solved problems that other species hadn't even begun to ask. Their machines were said to run on harmony, their cities shaped by thought alone. Yet, like the others, they vanished. No war, no known disease, just quiet ruins. Nira wasn't here to find treasure. She was here to find truth. She moved deeper into the structure, her boots crunching on frosted stone. The building seemed intact, frozen in time, as if the wind itself had paused to preserve it. She reached a tall chamber, walls lined with ancient panels covered in soft blue lights. In the center stood a black monolith, humming with low energy. It took only a few seconds to activate. A quiet tone rang out, and then the monolith began to speak. To any who survive, it said, the voice cold but calm. This is our last message. Earth is not safe. Earth is not asleep. Earth is the shell of something worse. The recording paused, then continued. We thought we could contain it. We were wrong. Nira stood still, heart pounding. She had heard versions of this before, fragments, echoes, half warnings from other civilizations. But this one was different. It was not just a warning, it was regret. She touched her data tool, transmitting the message back to the archive where Darren and Moji were collecting everything. It was now the 15th confirmed extinction tied to Earth. Later, in the quiet of her ship, she reviewed the collected messages. They came from different times, different systems, different minds. Yet they all shared a single pattern. Each civilization had grown powerful, curious, and unafraid. Each had discovered Earth while exploring nearby systems. Each had found something strange, signals, broadcasts, or odd behavior from Earth. Then, each had vanished shortly after recording a message of warning. Nira watched one message from the people of Ashen, beings of light and sound. Do not decode their humor, it said. We tried to understand their symbols, their jokes, their strange mix of sorrow and joy. We thought it was art. It wasn't. It was a signal, a trap, a truth, wrapped in nonsense. Another from the Volnari, a crystalline hive mind, said simply, they are not chaotic. They are focused chaos. That is worse. The more Nira read, the more she noticed something chilling. These warnings weren't rushed. They were carefully composed, clearly translated, and often classified under formal categories: existential danger, dimensional instability, or even reality hazards. Every message was filed with the kind of calm only bureaucrats or dying civilizations seem to have. The messages weren't screams. They were reports. She brought this to Darren and Moji, who immediately noticed the same thing. "This isn't fear," Darren said over the comm. "It's protocol." They knew. They all knew they were too late. Moji displayed a timeline across the screen. The civilizations didn't all vanish at once. There were long gaps between them, hundreds of years, thousands, millions, but always the same story. Curiosity about Earth, unexpected findings, attempts to investigate or interact, then silence. Nira wondered aloud, why didn't anyone learn from the others? Moji responded softly. Maybe they thought the warnings were superstition, or maybe they were drawn to it, just like we are. One entry from the Bervelith archives kept haunting her. It was short, almost poetic. "We stared into the heart of Earth and it stared back. And then we understood. And then we were gone." Nira began to suspect that it wasn't just Earth's strange culture or odd behavior that scared these civilizations. It was something deeper, something under the surface, a force, a presence, or maybe a pattern too strange to describe, but real enough to erase whole species. One that Earth didn't fight against, but instead carried quietly like a wound or a weapon. She didn't believe Earth was evil. That didn't make sense. If Earth wanted to destroy, it would have done so by now. No. Earth was something else. Something that simply was. Too powerful or too important to remove. Too strange to understand. Earth was the center of something that should not exist, and everyone who tried to understand it disappeared. The pattern wasn't just extinction. It was obsession. Each civilization had drawn closer, ignored the warnings, and eventually believed they could solve the mystery. That was always the last mistake. Nira closed her eyes and whispered, "We need to stop this, or we'll become part of the pattern." But deep down, she wasn't sure she could stop. The pull of the question was too strong, the story too strange to leave unfinished. And even as she transmitted her latest findings, her ship quietly began to turn, heading not away from Earth, but toward it. The decision to form an official investigation team came after the 15th confirmed warning about Earth. The Galactic Council, made up of scholars, leaders, and a few beings who had long forgotten their original shapes, could no longer ignore the strange truth. Civilizations were disappearing one by one, always after trying to understand that small blue planet orbiting a yellow star. And so, the Council chose their team. They did not pick the strongest, the smartest, or the most experienced. They chose the ones who asked the most questions and weren't afraid of strange answers. Carvin was the pilot, a traveler who had flown through solar flares and the edges of black holes just to see what they looked like. He believed the universe was beautiful, even when it was dangerous. Luli was an artificial mind stored in an old metal bracelet. She had once guided a generation of explorers across the drifting cities of the nebula seas. Now she spent most of her time making sarcastic comments and updating the team's records. Oren, the final member, was an observer from the Lensrite Guild, a quiet group known for creating devices that could see not just space, but time. Oren wore one of those lenses on his left eye. It shimmered gently, showing flashes of the future, the past, and sometimes things that had never happened at all. Their ship, the Solace Reach, was small but well-equipped. It had cloaking abilities, translation software, and something called a peace field, designed to calm emotions in tense environments. As they launched from the central station, Carvin kept his hands steady on the controls. He wasn't afraid, but he was cautious. They weren't heading into war. They were heading into a mystery that had already ended too many stories. The first signs of trouble appeared before they even reached Earth's solar system. The ship began receiving strange transmissions. They weren't warnings, calls for help, or even official broadcasts. They were random. Songs, short videos of animals, people dancing, and a voice repeating, "You've been invited," in over 50 languages. Some messages were tagged with usernames and timestamps from systems Earth couldn't possibly access. Luli scanned the data and said, "This isn't communication, it's a performance, and we're the audience." Oren, looking through his lens, murmured, "Something is watching us too. But it's not trying to hide. It wants us to see what it wants us to see." As they crossed into Earth's system, things grew stranger. Jupiter's swirling storm appeared to blink, just once, but clearly. Mars hummed faintly like a quiet song with no source. Carvin checked their cloak. It was working perfectly. Yet every Earth-based conspiracy network, some run by private citizens and others by fringe groups, suddenly began posting images and maps of a mysterious, unknown craft. The descriptions matched their ship exactly, down to the strange glow around the engines. Luli blinked her lights. "We're invisible and being live-streamed. That's impressive." Soon after, their ship's toaster, a simple device used for making bread, began printing messages in the form of burned symbols on the toast. The first one read, "Welcome to orbit. Please remain seated. Reality may shift suddenly." Oren watched it silently and said, "That's not a joke. That's a warning." When the ship's coffee machine began spitting out small folded notes with reality terms and conditions, the team gathered in the control room. They knew now that something was guiding their journey. Earth was not reacting to them. It was preparing for them. The invitation came through the microwave. Coordinates were included, leading to a place on the planet's surface labeled simply as Waffle Stop, Nebraska. Carvin frowned. "A food building?" Luli replied. "According to Earth records, it's a diner, known for staying open during storms, blackouts, and apparently interdimensional shifts." Oren checked his lens. The location shimmered with unusual consistency. Time bent around it but never broke. "That's where we're meant to go," he said. They landed quietly, unnoticed by most of Earth's population, or perhaps unnoticed on purpose. The diner was exactly where the coordinates said it would be. A small building with glowing yellow lights and the smell of something warm in the air. Inside, a man waited. He wore a wrinkled suit, drank coffee that never seemed to empty, and smiled like he knew every story that had ever been told. His name tag read simply, "Management." "Glad you made it," he said cheerfully. "Hope the trip wasn't too confusing." The team sat across from him, unsure if they were sitting in a real place or an illusion made real. The man leaned forward. "You've been wondering what Earth is guarding, but that's the wrong question. Earth isn't hiding anything. Earth is the thing that keeps the rest of the universe from falling apart." Oren's lens flared briefly. Luli's bracelet flickered. Carvin stared out the window and saw a cat staring back, then vanishing like a thought left unfinished. The man continued. "We're not the most advanced. We're not the wisest. We just accept things. The nonsense, the strange, the impossible. And by doing that, we make it possible for the rest of the galaxy to hold itself together." Silence followed. Not the silence of fear, but the silence of understanding beginning to form. Carvin finally spoke. "You're not just a planet. You're the glue holding the cracks of reality from spreading." The man smiled again and added, "And we could use your help." The diner felt ordinary at first. It had booths with red cushions, coffee pots, steaming quietly on the counter, and a jukebox humming softly in the background. But as Carvin, Oren, and Luli sat across from the man with the management name tag, they began to feel it, the subtle wrongness. It wasn't dangerous, it wasn't loud, but it was there like a dream that remembered you long after you woke up. The man sipped his coffee calmly, as if he had all the time in the world, and maybe he did. "You're not the first to come here," he said, setting his cup down gently. "And you won't be the last. But you might be the first who doesn't want to fix us." His words were slow and clear, like someone explaining something that had been explained too many times before. Oren adjusted his lens, but the man's image didn't change. It didn't shift, blur, or flicker. He was exactly what he appeared to be, and somehow that made him the strangest thing in the room. Luli's voice came from her bracelet with a note of cautious curiosity. "So what is Earth? What are you protecting?" The man smiled, not as an answer, but as acknowledgement of a good question. He pulled out a tablet, The screen didn't show maps or data, but swirling shapes that didn't stay still, coordinates that bent, numbers that didn't end. Earth isn't guarding a monster, he said. Earth is the guardrail. The barrier between everything that works and everything that shouldn't. Carvin raised an eyebrow. You mean like a prison? The man shook his head. Not a prison. A balancing act. Imagine the universe as a line of dominoes. Every law of physics, every equation, every rule, lined up perfectly. If even one falls too neatly, the rest collapse. Absolute order sounds peaceful, but it's not. It's death. Nothing moves. Nothing changes. Earth makes sure the dominoes stay just slightly out of line. The three visitors listened in silence. The idea was wild, but something in them, perhaps the part that had been watching the evidence pile up, felt it might be true. Oren leaned forward. But how? How does one planet hold that much power? The man chuckled softly. By being completely and utterly unpredictable. We argue over facts. We love things that make no sense. We create chaos not because we enjoy it, but because we're built to survive in it. That chaos stabilizes everything else. Luli processed the idea slowly. So the memes, the jokes, the strange broadcasts, they're not signs of madness. They're tools. The man nodded. We didn't design them that way, of course, but that's what they became. Every cat video, every viral trend, every moment of nonsense helps shake the universe just enough to keep it alive. Carvin blinked. So you're saying humans are the universe's maintenance crew? The man laughed, the sound echoing strangely as if it didn't follow the same path twice. That's one way to look at it. We're not smarter. We're not stronger. But we're stubborn. We accept the weird. And sometimes that's all it takes. The coffee refilled itself. The lights flickered in patterns that looked like they might be spelling something if one stared too long. Outside the window, nothing had changed, but everything felt different. There was no danger here, only truth, and that truth was heavy. The man stood up and took a small stack of papers from under the counter. We're offering something new, he said. Not a warning, not a secret, an invitation. You don't have to run from Earth's strangeness, you can help carry it. He handed the papers to Carvin, who saw that they were blank until he touched them. Then words appeared. Chaos Consultant Agreement. Terms flexible. Oren looked up. All the others tried to fix things, that's why they vanished. The man nodded slowly. They couldn't accept what they saw. Tried to correct it, tried to explain it, and when they did, the universe pushed back. You can't fix what isn't broken. Luli's bracelet dimmed, then glowed again. Then maybe it's time someone helped you not fix it. The man smiled, and it seemed the entire diner smiled with him. Exactly. 3 cycles later, a new post appeared in the Galactic Archive. It wasn't carved in stone or hidden in music or buried in ruins. It was uploaded through a system that didn't exist until it did. The message read, To all who search for answers about Earth, yes, the planet is strange. Yes, the species is unpredictable, but they are not the problem. They are the pattern that stops problems from growing too big. They guard not with weapons, but with confusion, humor, and a refusal to make sense. It works. Let it. It was signed by Carvin, Oren, and Luli, now listed under the title Interstellar Chaos Support Team. The post ended with a short line. We chose not to explain. We chose to join. Attached to the message was a looping image. A cat walking across a keyboard, triggering random galactic code, followed by a short beep and the words, Stability achieved. No, one could agree on what it meant, but for once that was the point.